working on my towel. Cleaning off my brush just a little bit. And I'm going to make a larger pile this time of a whitish blue mixture. So I'm going to take my white, relatively nice pile, a little bit of cobalt blue because it's a nice warm blue, and some of my Neo McGill. Now, these colors, because I'm mixing in the Neo McGill into my piles of paint here, what I should expect is that by tomorrow or the next day, they're going to be relatively solid, so I'm not going to be able to reuse them. So my plan for today is really to attack this and use much of the paint that I create into these piles. If I were not planning on using all this paint, I would keep my Neo McGill out of the paint and just add it to my brush and kind of touch it in, make smaller piles, so to speak, that I plan to use. So that way I don't waste paint. Okay, that's a nice, pretty light blue. I'm also going to go ahead and make like a darker color. And notice I haven't really got my reference photo out. So if you want to work from a reference photo, you can. What I'm really doing in my head is I know I want the towel to be white. I know these areas are dark because we've worked through all the values. So in my mind, dark in a white towel, it's almost like a purple blue color. So those are the colors I'm going to lean towards. And then I'm going to pull some of the brown into those dark colors because the brown is reflecting off the eggs, right? So I'm going to make like a darkish purpley brown color, okay? Grab my ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, and burnt umber. All in about equal portions. And then some of my titanium or zinc white, whichever one that you have, that we can add some McGill to. Add a little more brown to that. I'm actually kind of pulling it off into a separate pile because I'm liking that pink color. I'm pretty sure I'll be able to use that. Okay, starting from the background and moving forward, I'm going to grab some of my light blue here. A little bit of my McGill on it as well. Let's start right here. This week my paint is a little bit thicker, but it's still pretty thin where I can still see what's going on underneath it. And I can tell you my lines are disappearing this week from my underdrawing. I'm going to start working a little bit with my darks. It's quite not the color that I want. I'm going to add a little bit more blue to it. Still keeping it relatively thin. There we go. All I did was add a little bit more cobalt blue to it and my Neoma gilt. I'm going to start working a little bit more slowly. So that I can create these subtle transitions from my light into my dark. This under here needs to be darker, right? My reference photo. So looking at him right there, I've got my light just a little too thick over here. So I'm going to bring in a little bit more of a lightish color around there. And I've also got it too dark up in here. So I'm going to play with that. So this comes down and around and out. And then it's got a nice smooth transition into the dark right there. Okay, and then it's got what I see, like a little bit of a reflective orange right in here. If I grab some of this orange, and it's still nice and thin, and if I pull that right about here and down, and I'm going to pull it up here just a little bit too. And then just kind of soften these edges, going from that color to the other. I'm just using a dry brush to kind of smooth the transition from there to there. Okay. Alright. Still working in this area. One of the things I just did was I pulled some paint over my egg. I'm going to erase that. Good. That puts the towel behind it now, again. And I'm going to work on this area right in here because I want it to really stand out. So I'm going to add in relatively thicker paint there. And then it's got like a highlight that I see, well, it's got a dark spot here, so it's got a highlight coming in right about there. Okay. I'm going to work right in here. Or maybe up in here first. There's so much going on that you just want to attack it all. I'm going to move over into this segment right here. Following is kind of the same logic that I did before. I know I see some darks in here, and because of it's in my mind, it's going to be like a purpley brown because it's a white towel. I'm going to take some of my brown, my purple brown. I'm going to add a little bit of cobalt blue because we figured that out in the previous one. So I'm going to add that right in here. Make sure I've got my gilp in there. And I do see some like oranges and reds in there, so I'm going to pull some of that up in here. Especially right here, it looks like to me it's reflecting the towel. Okay. Now I am going to smooth the transition a little bit between this dark and this light that's right here. So I'm going to take another dry brush. I'm going to drag from the light into the dark. I see this just a little bit lighter right there. Like so. Alright. Pretty happy with that. I'm probably going to come back in here and darken this just a little bit. I'm going to bring back my egg, the shape of my egg. There we go. Okay. Now because in the picture, in the reference photo, this is pretty bright back in here. I want mine to not have as much, eye-catching. I don't want my eye to go directly there. So I'm going to subdue that a little bit by mixing in some brown with my white mixture here. And I'm going to apply that back in here. Still nice and thin. I do see a little touch of orange like right in here. Now the reason why I use brown, the other way we're using blue. So we're using like blue over here in our white, right? So brown is a more calming color. It's also the opposite side of the color wheel. So my eye, it'll be more drawn towards the lighter colors. Just kind of blending it in, creating a nice soft edge. Again, because I don't want my eye to go back there. There we go. Okay, and I'm going to get the shape of my egg back because I did go over that.